But the market's bracing for more potential turmoil this week as a new round of tariffs are set to take effect in just days. This comes after across-the-board 10% tariffs on nearly all imports entering the U.S. went into effect yesterday. President Trump defiant, insisting tariffs will spark an economic revolution, even as stocks plunge and fears of higher prices begin to set in. Joining me now is ABC Capitol Hill correspondent Jay O'Brien with more on this. Jay, President Trump's top economic advisor just told ABC News This Week anchor George Stephanopoulos that 50 countries, more than 50, I think she said, had reached out to negotiate tariffs. What more can you tell us about that and what this means for the new tariffs we're expecting this week? Because we still haven't gotten a real answer from the White House. Is this a negotiating tool or is it not?
And it depends on who you ask, honestly, Phil. The reality here is Kevin Hassett, you're right, just told George on This Week that in his understanding, he's been told that around 50 countries, more than 50 perhaps, have reached out to try to negotiate some kind of a trade deal as a result of these tariffs. But that somewhat stands in contrast to what the president himself has said, because he posted on Truth Social this weekend that his tariffs are, quote, here to stay. And then he told Americans in a separate post to, quote unquote, hang tough. And he said that there will be, as you noted earlier, an economic revolution as a result of these tariffs that will, in Trump's view, bring manufacturing and jobs and business back to the United States. So Republican allies of the president, even some of his staff, in the case of Kevin Hassett, have framed these tariffs as a kind of negotiating tool. I can tell you that's what I hear repeatedly from Republicans on Capitol Hill. But when you hear from the president, he does not frame these tariffs as a negotiating tool. He frames them as being firmly in place. And again, as you say, we're just days away from stricter tariffs starting.
And oftentimes that is his negotiating tool. He says one thing, his people say the other, and he negotiates behind closed doors. But the question is, will it be enough? House Republican Don Bacon plans to introduce legislation aimed at reining in President Trump's authority to issue new tariffs. I'm wondering if you think this initiative has any teeth. What can you tell us about that?
So he's going off of legislation that was already introduced in the Senate by Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa and Democrat Maria Cantwell. It was notable Grassley introducing this legislation, but Bacon going one step further and introducing it as well, or planning to introduce it, his office tells me, in the House of Representatives in the coming days. This legislation would seek to give Congress the power to vote on any future tariffs. Notable that Republicans are backing this legislation given this current tariff environment, but it would likely need the support of House Republican leadership, like House Speaker Mike Johnson, for example, to actually get any traction and eventually become law. And that, Phil, doesn't look likely to happen.
All right, we know that the president has focused on the stock market much of the time that at least the last administration was in office. I'm wondering, after the terrible week that we just saw, what is the White House saying about stocks plummeting?
We haven't heard much as it relates to stocks plummeting from the president, but we have on the Sunday shows heard Trump administration officials go out and say, in their view, this is temporary and that there will be a larger reset as a result of these tariffs. They're essentially trying to downplay the sell-off we saw last week and say that eventually the market will settle. And we'll get kind of a test of that in some form or fashion, Phil, tomorrow, because remember, this weekend is when those 10% across the board tariffs snapped into place. In just days, stricter tariffs on countries like China and Vietnam, countries the administration says have an imbalanced trade relationship with the U.S., they will snap into place on Wednesday. So Monday is going to be the first day of trading with these widespread tariffs in place, Phil, and we'll have to see come Monday morning how the market reacts.
It's going to be interesting. Jay O'Brien from the nation's capital. Jay, thank you.